Good morning.
Good morning. I'm glad you are alive.
Good morning. Welcome to our Wednesday morning class. I want to welcome you that are here in person and also to you that are online with us today and you that will catch us maybe later. Wow. We just had a really good stretching exercise class. So we're kind of trying to find our center again. Thank you, Leslie. And this lovely lady who leads us she's just amazing, isn't she? She's so good at that. All right, let's begin. To remind you that we are in a discussion over the 12 different faculties of our power. And that's want to be always made clear to you that we often have made the statement throughout New Thought, I know Unity does, that there's only one power, but there are 12 facets to that power. So it's not 12 separate powers. It's 12 different faculties or attributes to the power. Most of our power lies out of our conscious range. It's more in our unconscious, subconscious level. There, for us to access the power of all these attributes, the power of love, the power of understanding, the power of wisdom, and all these different powers, then we have to realize that we have to be at a state of consciousness that we're able to call them out. And we're taking this from the prototype of the story of Jesus, Yeshua the teacher, who came and began to call out the 12 disciples. Now, metaphysically, we're taking that inside to the fact of these disciples live in us. In fact, you could say 12 disciplines. But he called out Peter, he called out John, he called them out. So until you are ready to call them out into your consciousness, they're going to stay in your unconscious level. And that's going to render you less powerful to manifest, to create, to heal, or whatever it is that you are trying to bring forth in your life, to make your life more holistic and integrated in some way. So this to me was a genius thing that he came up with over 130, 40 years ago, so that it changed my life when I found this out. So today, actually, the next power that we're going to deal with is actually power. It is power. So we're going to talk about power itself. The word is power through which you make your beliefs manifest. Each one of these are in different places of the body, and the attribute of power is in the throat chakra. It is blue, and it's in the throat chakra. So that tells us that a lot of our power and how we release it is through the words we speak. So we're kind of go in that direction a little bit. So each of the 12 disciples represented a faculty of the power. So the one who represents power itself is Philip. Philip is the disciple that was called out. And let's look at the term Philip for just a moment. Philip means actually the love of a horse. Not that funny. But I've always heard that in Scripture, the horse represents power. Think about it. The ox, the horse, all of these are animals of power to move things, to carry the heavy burden of things. And so I find it interesting. If you were a Bible student, which we don't have much here, you would know the book of Revelation, it talks about the four horsemen. the red horse, the white horse, the black horse, all these different horses. So they're not talking about real horses, they're talking about certain powers. So it represents, the horse represents physical activity or horsepower. Right? Aren't you glad you got here in your car because you had some horsepower to get you here? Well, where are you trying to get to in your life today? What is your goals? What is your aspirations? So by using this power is going to help you to move you toward what it is that you're seeking. The power center is in the throat and controls all vibratory energies of the organism. Every word, every sound that you do is a vibration moving through your throat chakra. It is the open door between the formless and the formed worlds of vibrations pertaining to the expression of sound. In Soma Energetics, each one of the chakras, we gave an element. We didn't talk that much about it this weekend, but we should have. But when you go to your root chakra, that's earth. If you go to the sacral, that's water. If you go to the solar plex, that's fire. If you go to the heart, that's air. If you go to the throat, that's sound or vibration. And if you go to the third eye, that's consciousness or intuition. So each one of them have a certain element. And I'll give you an example. Sometimes I'd get a client that is in Ayurvedic term, it's called kapha. Kapha means heavy, earthly, very dense kind of personality. And you've met people like that. That's really, they make good policemen. They make good people that need that kind of earth energy in them. And I would find sometimes trying to work with that person, I couldn't get past the root chakra of earth because it was like so heavy and dry. There's nothing worse than trying to go out here and plant things in a ground that's hard, right? It's very difficult to do. So what do you have to do? You have to put water on it. So by moving the sacral water to the earth and the earth to the water, you soften the earth of the person and you create something called mud, or clay. And what can you do with that? Mold it, right? So I took the tuning fork for earth, mixed it with water, put them together, and I began to feel a softening around the energy of the person. And now we're ready to what? Seed. Because now we've created what the scripture calls good earth. It says the seed shall fall into good earth. And if it's in good earth, it'll bring forth. Now, if it's in earth that's not grounded, it says the birds of the air came and took the seed out. So a lot of people are being seeded wonderful spiritual ideas all the time, but it's not taking. Well, then think about somebody who's doing a vase or a sculpture or something like that. I know Karen does this kind of thing. You don't want to leave it in that state, so you're going to heat it. They put them in the oven to solidify what has been happened. That's your solar plex. So you get it? Water, earth, water, and fire. See? Hope that's a new way for you to see your chakra system a little bit in the form of different elements. Yeshua makes the statement that I'd never heard anybody make in entire scripture, and that is, my words are spirit. Up until then, there was the prophets, there was the visionaries, there was people who saw a day of the Spirit. The prophet Joel says, I have a vision and I see a day that the Spirit shall fall on all flesh. And your young men shall have visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. And it talks about a time in which the Spirit will fall upon the planet. But that was prophetic. The thing about Yeshua is he's the fulfillment of these prophecies. And he says, I'm not here to tell you about Spirit. I'm here for Spirit to move through me. My words are Spirit. That's why he did most likely do a lot of creating healings and wonderful things that he did that we call miracles. They're not really miracles per se. It's working with divine law, with spiritual law. And he knew how to do that because he said, I come to fulfill the law, not to destroy it. So be careful about what you're ready to destroy because you don't believe it anymore or you whatever. Don't do that because you're going to need it as you move forward on your journey and your path toward higher vibration and whatever. So my words are spirit and they are life. I love that. He meant that through the spoken word, he conveyed an inner spiritual quickening, a quality that would enter into the minds of the recipient and awaken the inactive spirit of life. That's what we should be doing with each other. If we keep our conversation in heaven, it says, that's a scripture, keep your conversation in heaven, means keep your conversation coming out of your higher mind, your higher spiritual mind. If we can speak from that way, we can activate in each other potentials that are ready to awaken and show up. So it's our responsibility to take responsibility of our conversations, how we speak, how we communicate with each other, because it all carries a vibratory frequency that in some way, if it can find a match for itself, will show up and manifest. That's why a person who might speak more hateful or judgmental or critical will only create the thing that they're speaking of, and at the same time saying, I don't believe in it, but they're speaking it. And therefore they're feeding and they're manifesting the very thing they're trying to do. The mind of man has the power of transforming energy from one plane to another plane. For those who have based any belief at all in the beginning of the Bible, it all begins with, and God said. That's how it starts. And God said, let there be light. And God said, let there be this. And God said. Now God is a spirit. So spirit say. Are you with me? Spirit says. Now, I challenge the fact of where the Bible starts because it's not the premise of said or word. If you look up the word, it means expressed thought. If you can't think it, you can't say it. The words are expressed thoughts that you have. But you can't stop there either. You got to go back a little deeper into some of the Eastern or the Veda or whatever that says in the beginning was the sound. The sound became the thought. The thought became the logos, or word. And that word is made flesh. Do you get the formula? There's a formula. And that's why starting out with no language is so important. I'm not going to get on tongues, but you don't have to do tongues. Here's what I invite you to do. And keep your lips where it vibrates. Before you say anything in the day, just start out with pure vibration coming through your lips. Feel it kind of tickle your lips a little bit? Okay, that's just pure vibration, but it's not a word your brain understands. It's not anything. So all your old faculties start shutting down because there's nothing to perceive, there's nothing to interpret, there's nothing to fit into a belief system, there's nothing there at all. It's just you're in pure vibration. So some of you who are wanting to go into the light language, I would start there. Just start with vibrating your lips, shutting your eyes, and start with the vowels. Let's do it. And if you keep just doing those things that you kind of understand, pretty soon it'll just go off into, oh my God, what's happening to me? I'm into some part of myself that my brain doesn't understand what I'm doing. Now you're in your spirit. When you're speaking earthly terrestrial language, you're not in your spirit. The spirit is in you. That's important. There's a difference in what is in you and what you are in. I want you to get that. The big message that I've taught for years and years is Christ in you, the hope of glory. But then in the late 80s, I said, wait a minute, I got Christ in me, but I need to be in Christ. And I did it through baptism. I did it through a water baptism ceremony back in the late 60s and 70s. And I started baptizing people into Christ, because Paul says we are baptized into Christ for the circumcision of our heart. Wow. And I just added, and into a Melchizedek order of an endless life. And boy, that was some of the powerful experiences you can imagine. People would literally go out in the spirit and go floating down the river when we had to go get them. They would be out in the spirit floating in the water if we were in that kind of situation of rivers or creeks or something like that. We would feel the water around us get hot, like angels or spirit guides had come into the water and surrounded us. It was such a time of such manifestation, people, that is still changing lives. I just had a call the other night from people I knew 45 years ago, just thanking me. They live in Vermont, and they heard me in West Palm Beach, and they came and was a part of one of those services. And they said, we just thank you every day, because this changed our lives so much when you took us into the Melchizedek order of Melinda's life, without mother, without father. I won't get into all that. But what that did, it put them into what we're calling 5D, but it put them into Christ consciousness or divine mind. And when you get there and learn to move, live, and have your being, wow. Talk about powerful. You are powerful when you learn to live in that state. Now, we all hear in metaphysics, it lives in us. That's all we hear. The kingdom's in us, God's in us, Christ in us, in us, in us. But have you ever thought of the fact that maybe what's in you'd like to come out and play? I meditate, Valores, and go in and visit my place of peace. Oh, for 20 minutes, 10 minutes. I'm in such a wonderful place in myself, and the place, meditation has brought me to a place of peace. But I leave the peace there and come out here. So I leave heaven inside and come back into hell. I need to bring a little more of my heaven into my hell. And make my hell become more heavenly. Hope you get my metaphor that I'm saying to you. Yes. So I think it's important that we realize. And one of the Nag Hammadi lost books of the Bible that was found in 45, it says that Jesus said, when the inner becomes the outer, and the outer becomes the inner, when up becomes down, and down up, female becomes male, and male female, then you shall behold my kingdom. See, he understood that there would be that bringing down of the wall between the inner and the outer. And that's what, to me, Jesus represented. Because he said, whatever is in me has become me. Touch me. He told him, go ahead, touch me. Touch my body, because my spirit now has become my body, and not even the grave and death can hold it. See the story behind it. Quit trying to figure out, did it happen or not? Did he resurrect or whatever? Of course he did. It may not be the way religion tells you, but he had charged his atoms and the molecules of his body to the level of the spirit that he was, that the grave could not hold him. Take a breath. So the spoken word carries vibrations to the universal ether and also moves the intelligent inherent in every form, intimate and inanimate. Let's talk about the power of the word. Some of the best things I can give you is always found in the book of Proverbs. And I want to say Proverbs is, to me, not necessarily a part of the Old Testament God. Not everything in the Old Testament is under the Old Testament God. There were prophets and visionaries who had a much deeper experience than Yahweh and Yahweh's 613 laws and abominations and all of that. And those who wrote from a level of more creative writings and speaking, such as poetry, fables, stories, metaphors, rabbinic teachings, tapped into universal mind. So that's why Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and even the book of Job is not a literal book. There was no man named Job at all. But these are all books that are spiritually poetic in their language to our soul. They are soul language. So that's okay. Again, I don't want you to think that I've taken the whole Old Testament and thrown it out now because it's all Yahweh. That's not true. I've had to go in and find what has been inspired of spirit throughout the book. Do you understand that? That's why you should be more students than you are. You need to be doing this and learning how to discern what is inspired. And this is any book as far as I'm concerned, because there's not a book out there that is written that's 100% spiritually inspired. Not one. I don't care if it's the Bible, I don't care if it's the Vedas, I don't care if it's the Quran, I don't care if it's the Corpus of Miracles, I don't care what you read, I don't care if it's Charles Fillmore, I don't care what you're into. There's nothing that's 100% spirit. There is a mixture because it's in 3D. It's in a polarized, separate consciousness, and therefore it is the seeker's place. Come on. Seek and you shall find. If you're a seeker at all, I always wonder what you all do in between Wednesday and Sundays. How much time are you spending researching, meditating, reading? I mean, how much of that time is being given to your spirituality rather than family and the mundane things of everyday life and all the stuff that we do as human beings? Is there not a time cut out in which is for your evolution of your consciousness? That is responsible. And you can't get me to do it for you. You can't pay me enough. I can't do it for you. This is what you have to do for yourself. I'm just facilitating, offering information, knowledge for you to help you on your path. But I'm not your destination. Your destination is your innate inherited intelligence that was given to you at creation. It's kind of like a spiritual birthright, only this is a creation right that has been given to you. And that's why it says, study to show yourself approved, so you be not ashamed. I bet some of you who have some family and friends and people in your life that you really like and are close to, but they're more in the Christian arena, and they start asking you questions. Well, on HeartLight over there, do you believe in hell? Oh no, we don't teach that. We don't believe that. Why not? I don't know, but we just don't believe in that. Could you explain hell? Could you explain where the word hell comes from or what it means? Can you have a intelligent spiritual conversation with anybody other than, oh no, I don't believe that? That's not good enough. That's rude. It says, make sure that you have an answer, that you be not ashamed. They're going to have one for you because they've learned Bible, they've learned catechism, they've learned their doctrine, and they're ready to sweep the floor with you while you're going, well, I don't really know what it meant. I don't know what it says, but I just don't believe it. Every one of you are responsible to be a certain expression of the teacher with a little t. Every one of you are a part of a ministry, if you believe, an assignment, a purpose of making yourself available to those who are ready to change and to raise their consciousness. Not just people who are called to be in the front or to be the leader or to be the minister or the guru. When I came to HeartLight 6 years ago, one of the first things I said, I will not be over you, but you can be with me. We have to be a collective corporate ministry here. So anyway, that's why Proverbs is so good. I'm going to give you Proverbs 12 and 18. There is that which speaketh like the powers of a sword, but the tongue of the wise is health. The tongue of the wise is health. Now, when it says about the sword, let me go back and give you the scripture. Be not ashamed. You need to seek and understand. 2 Timothy 3:16 is one of my favorites that I've been teaching new people for years, because they will use this on you in its literal form. All scriptures is given by the inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine and reproof in righteousness. Now, by reading that, you would think the whole Bible is inspired by God. But that it lost in the translation from its language of Greek into English. One thing, they took the word is out and put a comma. So in the Greek lexicon, it doesn't read all scriptures are given by God. All scriptures, comma, given by God is profitable for reproof, correction, instruction. Big difference, isn't it? Doesn't say all scriptures are inspired. It said all those that are profitable. And that's why you show yourself and study not to be approved. And get this, rightly dividing the word of God with the sword of the word. So here it is. You that use the sword and speaketh in spirit will bring forth a tongue of wise, so wise it will bring forth health. So we must speak our health into existence. Proverbs 18 and 21 is always a popular one that's been around a long time. The tongue has the power of life and death. That's Proverbs 18:21. The tongue has the power of life and death. In Ephesians 4:29, let no corrupt talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for the building of ourselves.
The fire of the tongue quenches the light of the soul.
Yeah, oh my God, that's a good one too. And tell us what that is.
Baha'i writings.
Oh, very good. Right on. Very good, very good. All right. So let's look here a little bit and see what we got. The creative power of words, let's take time for just a moment to delve into how words function as creative forces. As I mentioned in the book of Genesis, we read that God spoke the word into existence. Really, we have discovered that God most likely sung the world into existence. And we show a video in Soma that proves that scientifically through cymatics, how sound repatterns our physiology. So, oh, we can. You got it handy?
Cool, awesome.
Have been generously shared from the collection of John Bellew.
Hans Jenny has shown with his films that particular tones, one tone in particular, when vibrating sand which has been placed on a metal plate, can change the shape of the sand. It will take form into particular mandalas or shapes. And then when the tone is played louder or higher, another frequency is played, the shape changes. Now, if this happens with matter as simple as sand and powders, what's happening to us at the molecular level when a single tone is played at the body? At the drone or the single tone, when directed toward a specific place in the body, can change the structure within the tissue, within the molecules.
What you see with the work of Hans Jenny is you see sound transforming heaps and piles and films of inanimate matter, of materials of various forms and consistencies, just by the introduction of sound, taking on, in a process of gradual differentiation, all the patterns and forms that we see around us in nature, as if it's like a model of the creation through sound. Many traditions have this understanding that the world as we know it comes into being and is sustained in its beingness through sound, whether it's the Om in the Hindu tradition or the word or the Logos in the Western tradition.
There are these expressions. First there was the word and the word was made into flesh, or hallowed be thy name. Everywhere you find these references, not just in the ancient Vedic traditions, all over in all the traditions of the world.
You have this idea that the very first anything is a sonorous event which brings about the transformation of spirit into matter.
And think of this huge ocean of silence interacting with itself. When the silence is broken, what else could you get but sound? And that sound then manifests as the whole. So that's the cosmic hum, or the cosmic explosion, or the Big Bang, as you call it. But you know, there's different ways of expressing the same idea, that sound creates form. In India, as you know, there's this whole tradition of mantra healing, for example, or primordial sound. And here there are sounds that are taken that elicit very specific forms. If I make the sound A, after a while it will vibrate every cell in my body. Similarly, the other vowel sounds. Then there are other sounds that will bounce off specific organs more than anything else. For example, the sound it will vibrate more in the ears. The sound ka, ga, gha will vibrate here more than anything anywhere else. The sound ha will vibrate more in the stomach. The sound ma will vibrate more in the sinus cavities. Just the simple, well-known primordial sound known as Om. Anytime you make that sound in front of a drop of oil, for example, or a drop of water, it will manifest into a distinct form known as the Shri Yantra.
The human voice can also be made visible with a simple apparatus. The various vowels show typical characteristics depending on the nature of their sound. We can see the spectrum, as it were, of the sounds.
If you impose vibrations on plates of sand and so on, you get patterns of form appearing. The forms in nature are not due to vibrations being imposed from outside on passive particles. They're owing to the whole vibratory structure of activity which makes up the particle itself. Atoms are vibratory structures of activity. Molecules are vibratory structures of activity. Crystals are. Now, in the case of a living organism, the whole thing is a complex rhythmic structure or pattern of activity.
If someone after a while uses their ears to feel, then something very special begins to happen. But very few people use their ears.
What begins to happen?
You just feel pulsation. And then from pulsation, you can begin to sense rhythm. And then from rhythm, you can begin to see lights. And from lights, you can begin to distinguish forms. And most people focus on forms, very few on the pulse or the rhythms. The beat that you tune into, the pulse that you tune into, is going to affect the way you think, the way your body's postured, the way that you have emotions, what you allow into your life, what you don't allow into your life. That's what I mean. If you just listen to one kind of music, then your life is limited to the particular vibrational spectrum that music can bring to you. The more diverse your listening abilities, the more diverse and more flexible you're going to be in every aspect of life.
Thoughts?
Yeah. I can feel when I use some of the tuning forks, I can feel the little something in my brain moving around.
Sure. I think when I hear this stuff, I think about people yelling at their kids, people yelling at each other, being rude, being hateful, that your sound is creating patterns that's going to make the thing worse that you're trying to do. So when you speak, have a soft voice and a soft answer and speak more consciously and mindfully, coming from a non-judgment way, you'll create a different atmosphere. The kids will settle down. The argument will not excel into something abusive or whatever. So this is something where much has been given to us, much is required of us, that we realize this great tool that we have of a power of sound in that way. The words we speak and the thoughts we entertain shape our perception of reality. Charles Fillmore taught that the subconscious mind accepts words and thoughts as instructions. That's interesting. Manifesting them into our experiences. When we affirm positive, life-affirming words, we align ourselves with the highest vibration, which is truth and love at that time. So again, power is represented by Philip. Power is my ability to change and build consciousness. Power is my ability to choose thoughts and my feelings. Power is my ability to transform energy to one plane to another. Power is the ability to transform. I got twice. I love this one. Silence, thought, word, and manifestation are stages of power and action. One thing that I ask every class that we've ever had, what is the most perfect sound in the universe? Silence. Thank you. You think of silence as non-sound, but it is sound in its most pure form. And oftentimes I'll take a tuning fork and hold it. Well, I could use this right here. Hear anything? And if we all just quiet, we'll just be in silence. Wonder if I disrupt the silence with vibration. Now you can hear it. So what you hear is disrupted silence. But listen how it is trying to come back to the source from which it came from, which is silence. It's like when I do this, a big wave of the ocean comes up, and then it begins to head back into the source of the ocean that it came from. And we have found that the closer it gets to silence, the more powerful healing takes place. It's not out here in the loud level. It's in the very subtle as it approaches back to become one with its source, which is silence. So silence is a very powerful, powerful thing. If you are a student of meditation and you think you're trying to get to that place of total silence with your human mind, I would say most likely that's one of the most challenging things to do. I'm not saying a few people has not attained it, but these people are people who dedicated their life to it. These are the people that are in their little diaper thing up in the cave on a mountain somewhere, who's just meditating concepts. Their whole life is meditating. And they were able to be able to master that. But the average person, especially in the West, is going to find it difficult to really attain with the human mind a state of no thought, because the brain is what we call the monkey brain, is just continuously putting it out. But I was challenged, something that David wrote in Psalms, I meditate day and night. And I thought, well, how do you do that? Because I saw meditation as my 20 minutes of transcendental meditation twice a day that I was taught. And I thought, I can't do this 24 hours a day all the time. I can't be in that. But what I've learned to find out actually came through Deepak Chopra when he says the true us is the silent observer. I'm not the thoughts that are continuously running around in my brain whatsoever. Yes, you can settle them down. You can do it with sometimes certain music or affirmations or whatever. You can get it as quiet and down as you can, but it's going to be hard to stop those thoughts from coming back. You think you got it and it's another one here. But what you're seeing is on the screen of your mind. It's like moving into a movie theater and watching a screen of a movie, and you get all wrapped up in the movie, right? Scary movie, you get the emotions of fear. Your heart changes. You get maybe you perspire. I mean, you're into the drama of the whole thing, and you forget that you're just sitting in the audience observing this quietly. And finally the movie says, the end. And you come back home and realize that you're not the movie. You're not any character of the movie. You're not the movie, the story. You are the observer of it. So remember, you're always in a state of silent observation as a pure spirit being. So I keep telling you guys and teaching you that there's so much that you think you don't have, you need to attain, that you already are. We think because we don't have it, that it doesn't exist. Everything exists perfectly in creation, in spirit. Everything is done. Everything is accomplished. Everything is finished. Everything is whole. There is nothing you can add nor take away to the act of creation. But since religion has tried to confuse us with creation and formation, we keep thinking that formation is creation. We think a spiritual God has created this world of form. I don't. Because if my source, what I call my higher power, which is a loving, all-powerful totality of all light, and that is, it would not have created or formed anything lesser than it is. I would have a completely spiritual body right now. And I do have a spiritual body, but it's in this physical body of form that needs a lot of attention. A lot of my time, a lot of money. I mean, it's just a constant demand trying to keep these bodies in any way healthy enough to even survive to a few decades beyond 50. We work hard at it. We shouldn't have to do that. So, silence. Power is the power not for controlling others. You have to watch this word power in the sense that we think of power in the 3D world as more based upon things, such things as greed of power. You know, people who are powerful in the fact that they have the money, they have the position, they're in that state of such power, never are satisfied if their thought is more money. They'll never have enough. Because at some point when you have all the money and you don't need the money, then it turns to just being powerful and greedy and controlling. So that's the one power that is given to ego. Ego can use the power in a way that is for its own agenda in some way. And that is a lot of people who use their power to control people. I've watched lately, for some reason, a lot of documentaries on Hitler and all of that. On some reason, I'm fascinated with that place in history. I just am. How this all happened, what happened, it just amazes me that this little weird guy who just nothing of a person could rise to that kind of power to control those people like that. And we see it among ourselves too. Also, it's trying to stick up its ugly head to use power to control the masses. And that's why you have to be careful where you're putting your spirit and putting your power. Be very careful. In that sense, I hope that makes some sense to you. On the day, yes.
Would you say we have more power when we're being the observer as opposed to talking? Because just in my personal experience, I've noticed that when you talk too much, you give away your power. In other people, like, say less. The young folks say less.
Yes,
Yes,
I agree.
listen more.
I think sometimes when people are at us and whatever, and there's that temptation to react back, kind of rendering evil for evil type thing, when we give back what we think we're getting from other people, that we're just doing the worst thing. I think the most spiritual thing we can do, and it's not easy, is to go into a silent place. Let the person say what they need to say. I recently had that issue come up here. A situation came up that I just should have kept my mouth shut, but I responded back because I thought someone attacked me, so I ended up kind of attacking them. And I've learned from that exactly what you're saying, that if I'd have kept my mouth shut and stayed silent and centered in that which I truly am, that I would have stopped this whole thing in its track. The old saying, it takes two to tango. It takes two to make an illusion real, yes.
I'm not combating that idea in any way, but I also kind of see on the flip side, like, how our silence and our words have the potential to, like, influence for, like, the greater good. So in that way, like, if you could be like a shining example based upon how you respond, like, I can see where there is power in using words sometimes rather than silence.
I think you hit it right on the head by saying respond instead of react, because that's where it lies, I think.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. Now, it doesn't mean that if you pull back into silence, what you're pulling back is into still point. And that's a reset. But if we continue, and here's the thing I see, the most thing that we need to work on, all of it, is over talking each other. Hardly anybody can finish their thought without us feeling to butt in with our thought, even before that is completed. That's the worst thing we can do, is how to not react in a way, and I see it all the time. I know it's easy to do. It's a human reaction, because most of the time somebody's talking to you, you're not even really listening to them. You're thinking about what you want to say. Mm-hmm. I mean, the art of listening is an amazing thing to attain. And did you hear what John Bellew said? When you learn to feel with your ears. What a line. When you learn to feel with your ears, not connect to think, but feel. It's a whole different experience. And I've told that with the tuning forks. Quit listening with your head. When the forks sound, what do you feel when it sounds? Do you feel you're in the right place? Do you feel you need to move on to the next level? Because if they're up there going, oh, am I doing it right? Is it long enough? Should I be out of here now? David's watching me, blah, 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 what's everything? It doesn't work. You've got to get into feeling and intuition and guidance. And we need to bring that more into our life also, in some way. On the day of Pentecost, which is a Hebrew Jewish feast, that was held every 50 years. In fact, the word Pentecost means 50, Pentecost. So every 50 years, there was a gathering on the feast of Pentecost. In Acts 2, there was a gathering, and they were summoned, a representative out of every known nation of the world at that time, together in the same place. They were told to go to the upper room. Do you hear that? Upper room, a higher state of consciousness. And they were to, the Bible uses a strange word, tarry. One time I was preaching this, and there was a young man, first time there, and he said, I liked everything you said, but who in the world's Terry? Tarry means to wait, to just wait in expectation. He told them just to go up there and just tarry and wait, because something so magnificent was about to happen. A major breakthrough was about to happen. And it said, and the Spirit came upon them and set on their heads like a flame. Didn't say it was a violent flame, could it be? But it was a flame that set up on their head. And it said when that happened, at that moment, all the division based upon nationality, race, and language was dissolved, and everyone understood everybody. Everybody understood everybody. And that was called other tongues. That's not glossolalia. That's not unknown tongues. That is the fact of understanding people's languages that you haven't learned, but you get an understanding of it supernaturally. You could hear somebody speak Spanish, you don't know Spanish, but all of a sudden you get it. You get an interpretation exactly what they're saying. That would be interpreting other tongues. And that was really the true beginning and the birth of the New Testament church, so to speak, was on the day of Pentecost. And I just want to say they were all Jews. The 120, there was 120 Jews in that upper room out of all the tribes and of Judaism that was in there. So the first Pentecostal people were Jews. Hey, like that. Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
I'll join you.
But it did come to them first. They were the first ones to experience that. But it said when this happened, they were endued with power from on high. A new dimension of power was unleashed upon those people. And from that, they became spiritually powerful people. Out of that is born the apostles, the prophets, the disciples, the early church, also through that. And by the way, the Feast of Pentecost every 50 years, and I don't know why Judeo-Christians don't practice this. If they'd read it, they'd see every 50 years there was the Feast of Pentecost was to set all the slaves free, all debts and all things, and start all over again. Wouldn't that be great? To have a Pentecost in the fact of everybody's debts, everything, and we get to start all over fresh and new again. Barbara Marx Hubbard called that we're going to experience a planetary Pentecost in which all are going to supernaturally understand everybody at the same time. So be it. We need a rain of spirit to fall upon us. Yes.
I was just going to say, in the concept of, I've heard you talk about Pentecost numerous times and say, the thing about all the debts are forgiven, everything, and it just came to me. All the debts that you owe are forgiven, but all the debts that everybody owes you are lost again.
Yeah.
And does that kind of change the character of it when we really think about what that would actually be like?
Yeah, I love thinking about that. And yet they claim to be Judeo-Christian, embrace the Old Testament. A lot of them still observe a lot of the feasts and ceremonies of the Old Testament. But that one somehow got slipped over and instead became some kind of a religious cult group known as Pentecostals. Really, that's what happened. They became a little cult group who built a religion on speaking in tongues as the evidence of the Spirit. Yes?
David, can you give us an example of number one, the ability to transform energy from one plane to another? Can you expand on that for us?
Well, through vibration. And that's where tuning forks or bowls or chanting or things like that are just pure sound without language come in to repattern us to a different level, a dimension or plane within ourselves. Yeah. Dolores?
It's interesting, I'm listening and remembering that about 2 years ago, I love sweat lodges. People may not want to be hot, but I love sweat lodges and that experience. And I went to one, and the shaman that was there only spoke Spanish. And we were having a weekend retreat. And by the end of the time, I knew what he was saying. And it still sort of amazes me when I think back about it, because I've learned a little Spanish, having grown up in California and different things, but it was really something. It felt more like it was about feeling than about the words. Something was communicated on a very different level, and I, even before the person who was doing some translation said things, I got in my body what was going on.
Yeah, great. Well, that's exactly what we're talking about. That is the gift of other tongues, other languages, which is totally different than the gift of tongues, interpretation of tongues, new tongues and unknown tongues. You got different kind of ways and levels of looking at this this idea of tongues. Well, I see our time is up. So today, Philip, the power of horsepower to drive you to your destinies, to your desires, to what it is you're trying to attain. May you tap in to your power to create, to co-create, to manifest, and to bring forth. I do want to say this. If I'm right or wrong, I don't know, but it seems like as the world is, 3D world is going down and breaking down, the opposite should be happening for us. This should be our time that we are rising and shining. This is a time that we should be creating and manifesting. Yes, groceries are high, food is a challenge in some places, but we are promised that our bones will be fat in the day of famine. That's a promise. In the day of famine, your bones shall be fat. That means that at the time of scarcity and 3D is your time of plenty. You've done the work, people. You've got at least here. We're not maybe all the way, but we're certainly at a place in consciousness that we can begin to realize that our source is not the economy. It is not the government. It is not any of these systems that are breaking down. They're not going to fix us right now. We've got to step up and find our power. And I got to say this, a lot of our power has been given away in places it should not have been given away to. It's time to take your power back. Take your power back in some of the things in your life that you have given your power. Let's take a moment. Let's take a deep breath. Today we focus on the attribute and faculty of power. The power to love is the love of power. The power to stay centered in the center of our true reality. Today we recognize the power of thought, intention, and words. Spirit, speak through me. I give you my voice is your voice in this earth. My voice is your voice in this 3D world. Speak through me. Speak as me. Help me to stay centered and proactive and mindful. To speak life to death, peace to war, unity and oneness and love to all of the division of the racism, sexism, and all the isms that divide us. Help me not to fall into the trap of being critical, but let me hold holy space in which your loving word can come forth, for your word heals, your word repatterns, your word takes the old and makes it new. Activate my throat chakra today as never before. I give you this ability to use language and speak and vibration through my body to my higher self. Today we call forth Philip, who represents out of our unconscious our power to be. And if you'll join me, we'll all say, and so it is. Thank you so much. Have a great day, great rest of the week. Thank you for coming. And now it's time for us to receive the offering that you might have to help support this class, to keep it going. I think is it this Friday is the workshop with Darcel, so you that want to...
Starts at 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock on Friday. Sound, vibration, she's going to bring all kinds of sound things and vibration. Yeah, I wish she'd have told us a little more what she's going to do, but she loves...
It's called the transformative power of self-love.
Oh, that's good. She's someone that just loves sound and vibration. If anybody I've known through someone, she's the one that has really a love affair with it. Yeah, she's very, very good at that. So if you can, come and support and be a part of that workshop. Karen, what's your next?
Second Tuesday in July, which I don't know what the date is.
Friday.
Second Friday.